All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us on the live stream today. My name's Damien McCabe, and I'm co-founder at Connected, where I lead product and technology. Normally splitting my time between Toronto and San Francisco Bay Area, but obviously in light of the pandemic, spending all my time here in Toronto. Prior to Connected, I worked in product and engineering roles at Pivotal Labs, Facebook, Uber, and Instagram, and consider myself fortunate to have led product development teams across industries from financial services to big tech. For those of you who don't know Connected, we're a 6.5-year-old product development firm. We're headquartered in Toronto, but work with clients across North America. We're a team of close to 200 product builders covering the disciplines of user research, product design, product management, and software engineering. You might wonder what our promise to our clients is. First of all, it's that we build products that drive growth. Our cross-discipline teams rigorously identify, validate, and deliver winning product bets to market. We build products that operate at scale and ship globally to tens to hundreds of millions of daily active users. We also help our partners' teams grow. Partnering with Connected enables your teams to do more, learn faster, and scale faster. We collaborate closely and design graceful handoffs to ensure that you own your product for the long term. And the third one is that we accelerate your roadmap. Partnering with Connected means that your internal capacity is no longer a limiting factor in getting to market faster and being more competitive. With that, I want to invite another member to the stream, which is a good friend of Connected, Gib Biddle. Hey, Gib.
Hello, Damien. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful.
I need to know, is that a real background or a photo?
Oh, it's all real. It's my clean shelves. I dust them daily.
Oh, beautiful.
Well, and where are you joining us from today?
Today I'm in Boston, but I'm usually in San Francisco, and I think I'll be back there by this weekend, which is exciting.
Awesome. Good stuff. Cool. Well, I'm really excited for today to talk about Chegg and all the good things. So I'll pass it over to you to get started.
Very good. Thanks for joining. Thanks for Connected for having me. I just want you all to know that the PDF of the slides are already available to you. So take notes or take a photo of every slide. I'm here today to talk about Chegg's wicked hard decisions. I am in Boston right now. By background, I go back and forth between doing education, good for the world, and entertainment, bang, bang, shoot 'em up stuff, and binge watching. I was the chief product officer at Chegg starting in 2010. And then in 2015, started doing the kind of stuff I do now, which is largely teaching all around the world. The derivation of wicked hard decisions it's part of my growing up in Boston. Occasionally you can hear my slang, but it's really about making tough decisions. That's what we focus on today. And these wicked hard decisions, that the key thing is it about strategic genius or practiced art? And for me, it's all about practiced art. So we will be practicing it today. And we're going to be focused really on so giving birth to startups, taking a startup with a proof of concept and scaling it, which is what I did with Chegg. It's really about making these tough decisions about people, product, and the business. And there's really three things that come into play here. There's this notion of consumer science, of experimentation, of strategy, and that helps you build a plan. And then culture. And culture helps to define the skills and beliefs of people and their ability to make great judgment given the results of experiments or what happens when your plan goes wrong. So we'll be talking about some of these three forces. I'm going to be doing 3 or 4 case studies today. If you've been to business school or law school and you want to confess to us, case studies, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give just a little dollop of information. You're allowed to ask questions. We're monitoring the chat. And then you'll see I've got some helpers today from Connected. We've got Shanna and Lisa, Amina, and Leanne. And we'll have a bit of a discussion. But you're all allowed to ask questions. I'm hoping you'll get enough data to form an opinion. I'm also hoping that we'll have a debate, because that's really key to making these great decisions. So I'm going to dive right into the pool right away with the first case. And then I'm going to back up and give you a lot more context about Chegg to help you make a few more decisions later. In this first one, I came to Chegg in 2010. And the first week I was in the building and I was aware of this rift, this challenge within the company. At one end of the building, there was Dan Rosenzweig, the CEO of the company, who's saying, grow, baby, grow. And then at the other hand, there was Greg Stanger, the CFO, saying, we need to slow down and figure out the unit economics. Now, I did some little warm-up questions for you in the beginning. Chegg started as a textbook rental company. These big orange packages would go back and forth in the mail. And this is a photo I took at San Jose State. And I noticed that their mailroom was full of these big orange boxes. And that was, for me, that was the proof of concept that Chegg would work. So it's a textbook rental company. And here's Dan, and he's the gentleman saying, grow, baby, grow. He was confident of his ability to raise money at the time. We had sort of an A, maybe going on a Series B. And then here is Greg Stanger. And I knew Greg. He had been on the board of Netflix, and I was the VP of product there. I knew him pretty well. He's the CFO of Chegg. His job is to make sure there's always enough money in the tank. And he was very concerned by Dan's grow, baby, grow mantra, because he thought it was really very important to figure out how the unit economics, how the business of textbook rental would work. It's a little tricky. The way that Chegg worked was you as a student could buy a new textbook for $200. And that was a lot of money. You could buy a used textbook for $100. We figured out a way to buy used textbooks at scale, or we could buy them maybe for $60. And then we could make it work out if that same textbook went back and forth 3 or 4 times. But of course, that takes 2 or 3 years. So this first case, I was keenly aware of how much these two were saying radically different things. Towards the end of the week, I went into a room and I said, hey, Dan, what are your priorities? And I call this the GEM model. And Dan said, hey, growth is first. And then he said engagement was second. Engagement for me is a proxy for how good is your product, how engaging is your product. And then monetization is my way of saying, hey, can you make the money? Can you make, in this case, the unit economics worked out? And Dan was very specific. He wanted growth, 30% year over year student growth. And then engagement, we measured that essentially through textbook retention. So a student would come to us in September, they'd rent a textbook, and what percentage of those students will come back and rent when they return to school in January for their second semester? And then for us at that time, it was about 40%. And then monetization, it's basically economic efficiency. In this case, could we make money with that book going back and forth 3 or 4 times? That's the unit economics. So here were Dan's priorities. And then when I asked Greg the same question, he, of course, answered the opposite. He put monetization first. Let's figure out the unit economics. Luckily, they both agreed on engagement. And then he put growth third. He said, hey, we're going to run out of money if we can't get the unit economics to work out. So here's the real challenge. Hey, Shannon, Lisa, Amina, and Leanne, you want to come out? They're hiding. And so the real key question there is, do you agree with Dan and grow, grow, grow? Or do you agree with Greg about, let's slow things down and focus on monetization? Do any of you have questions of me that'll help you to form your own opinion? And by the way, you can do the same thing in the chat. It's really helpful to me. What do you think about this one, Leanne?
Well, I'm wondering how confident they both are in terms of funding. Like, do they have a network that can help them get the funding they need to keep going, to keep growing?
You're correct. In this case, Dan's a salesman. He loves to sell. And in this case, he's selling Chegg. So he's pretty confident about his ability to raise successive rounds of money. Great question. Other questions from the team? Oh, and Greg, he's equally confident that we're going to run off the cliff if we don't prove that there's a business model hiding in here. Okay, so they're both pounding on the table on opposite issues. What's your gut on this one, Amina? Do you have one? An intuition? I call this provisional decision making. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think my gut says probably growth, maybe because it seems like this type of business would make sense at a larger scale. And once we get the growth, we can make the case for the business and get more funding. So that's where my head goes.
Got it. Shannon, you have an intuition here?
Yeah, I agree. It should be growth. I think always more users and more stuff is better.
Got it. Well, Damien, you want to come out and make the opposite argument that we should put monetization first?
Yeah, I mean, if you got to ship these things all over the place, you better have a good way of making money to actually deliver them, get them back, make sure the lifetime of the book lasts. Come on, you got to figure out the monetization, Gib.
Got it. And in this case, Lisa, is there a right or a wrong answer?
I don't think there is.
No.
Yeah.
The most critical thing is you can't have Dan saying one thing and Greg saying the other. Okay. You can just sort of feel this is the consummate, the company is not aligned. So I pulled up Slido. If you haven't used Slido yet, Lisa, do you want to give a little lesson on Slido to peeps?
Sure. So if you have your mobile phone handy, you can point your camera to the screen here, and it should open up Slido for you, or a link to Slido, and then you could go ahead and give us your opinion on which you would prioritize. Is it growth or monetization?
Got it. So I'm also, so I'd love to hear, I call this provisional decision making. I haven't given you a ton of data. At least tell me what your intuition is. And then, in that case, what you do is you dig for additional data. And I'll give you a little bit more data. I'm seeing some of the comments. So Will's, at this stage in our life, it's year to year on funding. So you can always last about a year. Arvin, I see your point that you're like Greg, you got to focus on the monetization to ensure the long-term health of the company. Anthony, it's always year to year at this stage in startups. You always got about a year of cash in the bank. Why does monetization equal unit economics? That's just, for me, monetization means economic efficiency. It's an arbiter of how efficiently you can take money and create profit in the long term. In a startup, if you can figure out how to do that, profit translates into more investment in building an even better product in the future. That's the way I think about it. Hey, Damien, what do you see here from the results?
Well, I mean, I'm seeing that most people like growth, and that not too many people are siding with Greg.
There you go.
Greg on this one.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what happened here. We chose to grow, and it was really important that we simply blind around this. So in fact, we did put growth first, engagement second, and monetization. And the objectives for the company for that next 6-12 months were exactly how Greg or Dan had laid out. And in this case, what we did is we over-communicated with everybody in the building to make sure everybody understood that we were force ranking growth first, engagement or product quality second, and monetization or economic efficiency third. And these were the metrics that we used to measure that. And here's what I'm hoping that you'll learn from this case. The first is the power of shared language. To name it is to tame it. So in this case, the company was fundamentally unaligned. And this model, this shared language that all of us are able to apply, Sharon, Lisa, Mina, and I were having a conversation. We've never talked about Chegg before. And that's the beauty of tools, models, and frameworks. The second is the ability, this is the single biggest source of misalignment, if you will, at startups that I've seen. Sometimes for fun, I'll walk into a building and a startup and I'll ask people, how do you prioritize growth, engagement, and monetization? And if I get 8 different responses from 8 different people, I can tell that folks are fundamentally misaligned. And this alignment is about cross-functional alignment, getting marketing, product, tech, finance, content, all of these parties in the company aligned on how to prioritize these 3 things. And then once you do, over-communicate so everybody understands the priority. And then the other thing, in this case, is we would have these great debates, and then we would make a decision, and then we would commit to it. We would do it. And there's really no place, once you're committed, to people second-guessing or dragging their feet. In this case, Greg wasn't fundamentally confident of the decision. About a year later, he chose to go to leave, which I really appreciated, because he didn't stay there and try to, second guess Dan. And at the end, both of their careers went great in different directions. And yes, in most cases, it didn't surprise me to see 3/4 leaning forward to growth. That's the job of a startup. The job is to grow the company. All right, so I promised you I would back up, give you a little bit more context. So I'm going to give you more context about Chegg, and then I got 3 more cases for you. And then I hope at the end to abstract it, to share with you these 10 decision-making principles. This is what Chegg looked like in 2007. Leanne, with your careful design, I assume you concur that it sucks. And my joke is that all startups suck at the beginning, and this is the truth. It was sort of a, if you're in the northern, in the U.S., Craigslist. The intent was to make it Craigslist for students. You could buy and sell used couches. That did not work at all. And Mike Maples was the seed and angel investor. At some point, he suggested, why don't you try renting textbooks? At the beginning, it was simple. We were buying new textbooks on Chegg, sending them to a student and saying, hey, when you're done, return it to us. That was the proof of concept, and it worked exceptionally well. And that's how Chegg was able to align on this. And I'm guessing Leanne would say, okay, that looks better. You can see Chegg growing. Yes?
Yes, you can see it developing.
Thank you for the support.
Streamlining your product offering is
there you
coming
go.
through now. It's starting to come through.
Fantastic. And then today, it's a clean, well-lit place. So I want to give you a brief history. Startups are hard. And this startup actually started in 2001. The entrepreneur couldn't get a job because he had no experience. He couldn't get any experience because he couldn't find a job. And this was his chicken or egg, which came first. And that's why he called it Chegg. And it launched at Iowa State. This was his school. In 2006, got his first real funding. His first 5 years was all friends and family. But real VC funding from Mike Maples circa 2006. And then, as I mentioned, the first test drive of this idea of textbook rental was in 2008. In 2010, Chegg rented 2 million textbooks. And then went public. I had joined Chegg because I wanted to help take an ed tech company public, and we did it. Tail end of 2013. For a brief moment, we came out at $1 billion market cap and fell almost immediately to half of that. It was a really rough IPO. And then in 2015, we began to create a digital service. That was our intent, to go from paper textbooks to something more. And I'll tell a little bit more about that in a minute. And then March of this year, the company at March 1 was worth about $5 billion in market cap. That's terrific growth. And then when COVID hit, it doubled that. So it's been one of these companies as all students went online, it was super helpful to them. Sometimes you just have to be in the right place at the right time. And that worked for Chegg. Today, the company is making about $600 million in revenue. So that's a brief history of Chegg. Startups are hard. And then we were very mission-based. So the idea was we were going to put students first. There's too many entities really, taking advantage of students. So our intent was to put them first. We were a very mission-driven ed tech company. We were maniacally student-focused. How can we help improve their lives? And our thinking was we would focus on the student, and the teachers, the administrators, the publishers would eventually follow. But we were very threatening to college campuses because we were putting their bookstore out of business. And here's a little sense of, at Chegg, what it means to put students first. You can see some of the ethos of the company. And the product vision, recognize I had come from Netflix, where first step was DVDs back and forth by mail. And then we switched to streaming, went from paper to digital. And I was assuming we could pull off the same here. So we started by getting big on textbooks. And then my initial vision, we were going to lead e-textbooks. It'd be just like at Netflix. And then third, we would expand into other student services. We could help students get their first internship or a job, for instance. And this was my fuzzy vision. I'm applying here, I call it the GLEE model. You can see the G, the L, and the E. But I didn't quite get it right. And I want to give you a sense of what happened. So notice here that a new textbook would be $244. That's a lot. You could rent one from us for about $92. But notice that the e-textbook was about $120. And that was the real failure. That was the reason that step 2, the e-textbooks didn't get as big as I hoped or expected. So we had to create a different, vision, if you will. And so I amended it. I said, we're going to get big on textbooks, and then we're going to lead these high margin digital services. A lot of Chegg's last 5 to 10 years is about making a transition from paper textbook to these high margin digital services. And then continue with the third step. By the way, these steps here, to my mind, each of these was going to be 5 or 10 years. This 3-step process might last 20 or 30. And this is about thinking long-term, because in the long term, anything is possible. And I was the product leader. My job is almost always the same, which is to delight customers in these hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. And margin-enhancing is just a fancy way to say, hey, we're going to make money. We're going to generate profits so we can reinvest in building an even better product in the future. And there were lots of things about Chegg that delighted students. You could save up to 90% off on textbooks. We would let you hang on your textbook and return it 3 weeks later. And why do we do that? We knew that in some cases students switched courses. They no longer needed it. Or they were sitting in class and realized the professor was never going to use that textbook. And these were examples of the ways that we were really trying to delight our customers. And another surprise and delight, when students would open up their big orange box that came in the mail with their textbooks, there'd be cool stuff like Red Bull in the box, or there'd be laundry detergent or food or whatever you needed late at night. And that was part of the delight. And then the margin at Chegg, I just mentioned, this was essentially our ad and sponsorship business. Those things that delighted students were paid for. In fact, they paid us extra by the sponsors that we're trying to get in front of students, which was cool. And then we A/B tested forever to figure out the right price of textbook rental. We were forever had 5, 10, 15, and 20% higher prices for some folks in test cells, and just the opposite, 5, 10, 15, and 20% lower. And this was us trying to figure out how to make the business work. And then we knew in the long term, we were going to figure out how to deliver on these high margin digital services. So the question I'm going to pose to you right now is, what makes Chegg hard to copy? And that's the real insight that I had sort of, mid-career. It's not enough just to delight customers, and it's not enough to build hard-to-copy advantage. Rather, to build margin, you also need to do things that build hard-to-copy advantage. So I'd love it if you could use Slido again. I'm pulling up my phone as though I'm taking a photo using my camera app, and a link magically pops up. I'm clicking on that, and I'd love for you to contribute to this word cloud and answering the question, what makes Chegg as a product or service hard to copy? You can also think about what's hard to copy about other companies like a Netflix or a Facebook. But if you're able to do this, it's really the key to building a long-term success, because at the end, you don't have to worry about your competition as much as if you were wicked easy to copy. Damien, are you surprised or encouraged by anything that you're seeing here?
Yeah, and actually, before I comment on that, I just want to note for those of you watching the replay of the event. You won't be able to participate in the live polling, but the 100 and some that are watching live today can obviously participate in our.
You should always
our,
come out and see us live, right, Damien?
Hey man,
we're much better live than recorded.
At least 10x better. But to answer your question, there's a few things that I'd love to see, right? Brand, which can never be undervalued. And I think every small startup appreciates that when they're getting off the ground. What the heck is the name of the company going to be? What's the, logo? How are people going to love it? How are they going to feel safe using the product, et cetera? I think that happy to see brand as a key thing that would be hard to copy once Chegg had momentum.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I'm actually seeing, I think I'm seeing, I'm looking to see if, basically in a moment, I'll switch and I'll share with you the 4 themes that I was looking for. You guys are doing great. And Joseph, thanks for the shout out on my product strategy essays, as well as William. Okay, so here's the stuff that I was fishing for. Brand, Damien talked about it, network effects, unique technology, and then economies of scale. So at Chegg, this idea of Chegg, the brand, is that we put students first. Those big orange boxes would overwhelm campuses, and that helped us to build a trusted brand. And you also have to build a great product to build a trusted brand. The network effects, Facebook had its social graph. We endeavored to build what we call the student graph. The idea was if we knew what campus you were on, and we knew all the courses on your campus, and we knew all the books tied to your courses, and we knew all the other additional work, the homework tied to it, that was our idea of a student graph. And if we could do it, that would be a hard to copy advantage. And then, yes, we had some unique technology. We were trying to create a personalized experience based on that student graph data. And also think about the mechanics of sending these textbooks back and forth in a fast way. We essentially had automated hubs to do that. And then your job for a startup is, the reason you try to get big, and that we were getting big on textbook rental, is you get economies of scale. So we did figure out ways to buy lots of used textbooks. And that gave us an advantage over folks that tried to compete with us. So I'm going to share with you, this is my highlight of, this is essentially the product strategy for Chegg. And it was answering the question with theories and hypotheses about how we hoped to delight customers in these hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. These are all high level theories. 4 of them worked out, 1 failed. I'll let you guess which. But for these high level theories that answer the question, how would we delight in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways? We always had projects. So for instance, the way that we built the student graph, we are essentially scraping and parsing all of these university websites to understand the courses and books tied to them. The beginning of personalization was simple. We just enabled Facebook Connect. And so in each of these are projects that are tied to the product strategies on the left. And at any moment in time, our high level engagement metric that defined the goodness of the overall product was essentially that textbook rental retention. What percentage of students came back the next semester to rent from us? But for each of these lower level strategies, we had proxy metrics that helped us to understand if we were making progress or not. So for instance, on personalization, our belief was if people valued a personalized experience, they would be more willing to give us some data, essentially turn on Facebook Connect and do some other things. So we would measure the percentage of logged in students who essentially had given us some information about that. And at startup, that was 5 or 10%. And a few years later, that was 30 or 40%. And that's where we knew that the personalization was working. And then I'm just unfolding those 3 last slides. And I call this the SMT. Some of you have read my product strategy essays, which I appreciate. I'm scanning the chat right now. But the S is the strategy, and then the proxy metrics against each strategy, and then the projects or tactics on the right. So I'm giving you a lot of insight about how to think about what's important and what's not at Chegg, and that's what strategy helps you to do. Of course, not everything succeeded. I don't know if you can remember, like in the old days, Groupon, which everything was local, local, local. And we experimented with doing local deals for college students, and that failed. And then we tried in-store kiosks at these bookstores. And the way I think about it now, we're building a bridge to the past, which is a bad idea when you're trying to innovate on the future. This is another failed theory or hypothesis or strategy. And then I alluded to one of those high-level strategies failing, and I'm sure it surprises you because, of course, college students are very, very social. We tried to build, essentially, think of it as a feed, where students could share what was going on their campus, what was going on in their class. They could share information, and this was a failure. And so that's just what happens. That's why I describe these high-level product strategies as theories and hypotheses. And we're going to focus on some wicked hard decisions, but not all of the decisions are hard. So when I first came to Chegg, I put in place our first A/B test systems. It was wicked early. So Optimizely at the time was a 5-person startup that the team were sleeping in sleeping bags under their desks. But we implemented pretty close to their startup our first A/B testing system using Optimizely. And that gave us insight. I'll share an example about what works and what doesn't. But this notion of consumer science is really about getting consumer insight through these 4 sources. So qualitative, focus groups and usability, through survey. I'll do one at the end of my talk. Through existing data, looking for patterns and trends. And then I'm going to share with you an A/B test result in just a second. And consumer science is really the scientific method. Form a hypothesis, do an experiment, look at the data and results, and then apply our human judgment to figure out the right thing to do. So the very first A/B test that we did at Chegg, there was the marketing team was wicked excited about this Golden Chegg promotion, and the idea was that there, 1 in 1,000 boxes would have a golden ticket, sort of like Willy Wonka, and great things would happen. And I A/B tested the site with and without this Golden Chegg, and discovered that the Golden Chegg, this animated figure, was actually taking away the credibility of the company. So in this A/B test, I was able to prove that the name on its own is much better than associating with the damn egg, and certainly that Golden Chegg promotion, for all of its work, was providing no result. And that's an example of an easy decision through A/B testing. So now I've got some harder decisions for you. The first one is we were presented with an opportunity, a 10-person Israeli team, and we could buy them for $10 million in order to experiment with e-textbooks. So we hadn't done any e-textbooks at this moment in time, and we had an opportunity to buy a 10-person team that had built all the tools and technologies to create an e-textbook experience on your laptop or on an iPhone or Android or whatever else. And so the question I'm going to put to everybody here is, how do you feel about an opportunity to buy a team here versus building it on your own? So this is would you build the e-textbook reader on your own, or would you take advantage of buying this 10-person team? Leanne, how do you feel about this one? Do you have questions?
I mean, if it were up to me, I'd probably ask, like, what is the culture at the company? If these people working in the same way that your company's working, would they be able to integrate into your process quickly and easily?
Yeah, so the culture one's tricky, but you're right to evaluate the fit there. So it's bigger than just hiring one person in the company. In this case, they were keenly motivated. We were, as a company, we were becoming more and more successful, and people perceived that we might go public. All of the entrepreneurs were interested in being bought by us because they saw it as a way to get liquidity. Someday they could sell their shares. But I thought it was a reasonable fit, Leanne, the short answer. Shannon,
do you want to hear my
go ahead. You had another question, Lena?
No, I was just going to say, would you want to know my opinion then?
No,
what
I
I would
want to
do?
know, yeah. What other questions do you have, Leanne?
No other questions at this time.
I'm going to come back to you.
I was good.
Shannon,
Yeah.
do you have questions?
Yeah,
Bring
I'm
everybody
curious.
up.
Can you just license their software for and like kind of as an experiment?
You know, that's a great question, and the short answer is no. Okay, they want the 10 million bucks.
Okay.
How do you feel about the 10 million bucks, Lisa?
I think it's a lot. There is a question here in the comments from Sharon. Is 10 million the total cost, or will there be ongoing costs as well?
That's it. One time, give them 10 million bucks, and you own all 10 of them. Okay. Does that feel like a high stakes or low stakes decision to you, Lisa?
It feels high, but if you can get learnings really quickly from buying it, it might be worth it.
What's this thing about learning? What's going on there?
Learning if it was a good decision, if you can make money off of it.
But what are we really experimenting with? What are we really trying to discover?
If e-textbooks are viable business.
Correct. Let's see, Leanne, make the argument for why we should build our own.
Yeah, I was going to lean the other way.
I know you were.
How did you know? Okay, so because it's a lot of money, it's risky to bring on a team that's far away, maybe doesn't work the same way as you, and they may not be as mission focused or as focused on students, and they might not understand what business you've built.
Leanne, which of these approaches is going to give you a better, more integrated experience in the long term?
I would say building internally.
Yeah, that's what I was fishing for. Okay, Damien, are you surprised by these results?
I'm not. Everyone loves the story of an acquisition, and the ease, right? The being able to run the experiments tomorrow by having access to the product and the technology. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's pretty tempting.
Cool. Well, I'll tell you what we did. We did choose to buy. So the wisdom of crowds here is dead on. And here's what I'm hoping that you'll learn from this. The first is to answer the question, 10 million bucks, what I was trained is in this context, not a ton of money. So that same guy, Dan Rosenzweig, he had been the COO at Yahoo, and he had a deal to buy Facebook in 2007 for $1 billion, and the board thought it was too much. And what he learned from that, the cost doesn't matter. Just he would always say, Gib, I just want to know if you're a yes or a no. Don't worry about the money. In this case, I was a yes. And then I really learned about speed and decision making. We got about 70% of the data. I wasn't able to meet all of the team, for instance, Leanne, in person, but I thought it could work. And at the end of the day, I realized that an acquisition is an experiment. It's the fastest way of learning about how important e-textbooks were. In this case, learning was more important than knowing. And we learned a lot. This is when I actually confirmed that e-textbooks weren't enough, that we would have to explore and discover more ways to get to the second step of becoming that high margin digital business. So now we're armed with the beauty of buying companies, and we've got all these bright entrepreneurs coming to us because they perceive that we're going to go public, they can get liquidity. And this next case is to figure out which should we buy. And the textbook rental is now it's not growing quite as quickly, and it chews up lots of cash. Okay, and remember, we're trying to get to that high margin digital business. And we can imagine that we'll be able to go public. And that is very attractive to these young ed tech companies because this is one way that they can get liquidity. So the case here is which should Chegg buy? And I'm not even going to tell you how much each was because my argument is it's just not relevant. These are yes versus no. So I've got about 5 choices for you. This is CourseRank. It's a startup that started on Stanford and expanded to about 20 other campuses. And they're able to help students to choose a course. And what's really going on is they're going to help us to build out that student graph. And then this is another company called Student of Fortune. These are 2 bright engineers that have figured out a crowdsourced way of answering students' questions. This is the beginning of a potential homework help business. And this is Cramster. They had step-by-step solutions to all the textbook questions of the back of your book, both the odd and even, in ways that you could really learn stuff. And they did it for 1,000 textbooks, the top 1,000 textbooks out there. And they did it largely with a team in India, which was about 1/10 the cost of writers in the States. Zinch, think of this as LinkedIn for high school students. So this was giving us access to understanding lots of high school students. And this would be an opportunity for us to take our college textbook business and extend down to high school. And the last is a company called NoteHall, which does class notes. They were huge in Arizona, and they were able to extend to about 10 other campuses, and they were class notes. They created a system where you could be the note taker in a class, and the students across campus and eventually around the world would be able to get your class notes. So for students, they wouldn't have to go to all those classes, and they'd have high quality class notes. So here's a little summary for everybody. There's CourseRank, Student of Fortune, Cramster, Zinch, and NoteHall. By the way, revenues, way on the right, okay? You can see that CourseRank, 0 revenues. Student of Fortune had 5 million in revenues. Cramster had 5 million in revenues. Zinch was doing 10 million in revenue, and little NoteHall was doing 1 million. But I'm giving you this summary so you can decide which of these companies that you'd like to buy. Lisa, do you have any questions about any of these acquisitions? Do you lean forward or lean back on any of these?
Yeah, I'd lean forward to CourseRank because of the student graph.
Tell me why. Student graph. Okay.
For the student graph, yeah.
So it's on strategy for you. That's a nice way of articulating it, right? Mm-hmm. It's great to let the strategy inform which to buy or which not. Are there any you lean back on?
Probably lean back on Zinch.
Tell me why.
I assume
I'm looking at chat. If you have comments in the chat, go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, no, I don't know that it would complement the business very well. Perhaps also because they have more revenue, they'd be more expensive to buy.
But you trained you don't care about the acquisition price. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm not. I just want to get some context for the reasons behind.
I've got a question. Wasn't it about university and college, not high school? So isn't Zinch kind of serving a different demo?
It very much is. And great question, Damien. In that case, it's a potential growth opportunity to go down to high school students. Okay. And strategically, that might be the right thing to do. Okay.
Yep.
Damien, is there anything you lean forward or lean back on this time?
I mean, I'd lean in insofar as asking more questions about our top option here, which has $0 in revenue and 5 engineers.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know, kind of what their plan is from a business model standpoint, as also understanding a little bit more about the traction that they do have and validating that it's real, double clicking into their metrics, making sure that it's meaningful, that they've got real engagement.
Yeah. Yeah. You're pointing out the due diligence that's required, right? Yeah. Because I'll tell you, one of these was a total failure for our lack of due diligence.
Okay.
We have a question. Damien surfacing.
No, go for it, Lisa.
Yeah, no, I was just going to call it. We have a question from Wills. Can you remind us what problems Chegg is trying to solve at this point?
Yeah, so they're trying to delight students in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. Have gotten big on textbooks, and now we're trying to invent a high margin. That's really at the highest level of what we're trying to do. But the strategy does give you insight about how we're hoping to delight students in these hard to copy, margin enhancing ways, which is through personalization, via the student graph. But generally, we're looking for a way to help students with a digital service. But great question from Wills. Okay, I'm going to tell you the answer because I saw it kind of flat across the board. So there's a bit of a trick. I don't know if anybody out there noticed, but I didn't limit you to one because in fact, we bought CourseRank, we bought Cramster, we bought all 5. And from that insight before of this is a great way to experiment with different ideas, it was super fast. And I will say what we learned from it. So Cramster and CourseRank were big succeeders. The CourseRank for the student graph and Cramster, turns out that those 1,000 textbooks with the step-by-step solutions, that was the beginning of our homework help service, which became Chegg Study. It's really, today, it's a $15 a month homework help package. And that was the foundation of it. Just recognize that at the beginning, they were doing $5 million in revenue. Today, that's about a $300 million business. So those entrepreneurs, they just couldn't imagine we could get it that big. There was lots of diligence, lots of debate. It turned out that the little 2-person student of fortune was essentially people were plagiarizing stuff. So it was illegal. That was a big egg on face one for us because we just failed to do the diligence, didn't have enough debate. But buying all 5 of these digital companies committed us to moving beyond textbooks, was incredibly valuable. And today, Cramster's more than half the revenues. And the company's grown up. And the idea was that in the long term, we were building the student hub, this variety of services. And you can see the growth. Zinch, by the way, was a failure as well. Did not make sense to go back to high school. High school's got very different dynamics. So the last case I have for you here is it's 2015, and Chegg has an opportunity to partner with a textbook company called Ingram. And at this point, 3/4 of the business, or I could say this positively, 25% of the business is now high margin digital business, but 3/4 is the traditional textbook back and forth. Low margin that requires lots of cash. And cash is fuel. And it's just, it always felt bad to be spending a lot of money on the textbooks. And so Ingram comes along and they say, hey, we would love to take over, we'll manage your textbook rental business for you. And we'll do it in a seamless way so your customers won't even know that we're there. We'll take on all the cash requirements so you can focus on building your digital future. And if you imagine this, it's going to switch from revenue from the textbooks to a straight license fee. So the net effect of this is your revenues will not go up and to the right, which is what Wall Street wants. It'll be flat, but your profits will be higher. Profits will go up and to the right. But imagine at this point in time, your revenues would be 300 million in 2015, 300 million in 2016, 300 million. It'll be pretty flat, but the profits will be going up if you choose to engage with Ingram. And I want you thinking about whether this is a high stakes or a low stakes decision, and how you decide which is which. And so this case here is, would you outsource your textbook business to Ingram or not? That's the question that I'm putting here. All right. Oh, Damien, do you have any questions of us?
I mean, it's a pretty big question, which is,
let me ask the first one. Is this a high stakes or a low stakes decision for you?
This feels, I would say it's kind of low stakes. It feels reversible.
Think about all the work you have to do, integration with the different company. Think about all the homework you have to do. This is tying in all your backbend systems, your operations, your delivery systems. Which way am I driving you? Can you feel it, Damien?
I feel you driving me towards it's hard to reverse.
Yes, it is hard to reverse. And because of that, that's one. And then is this a high magnitude or a low magnitude?
It does feel reasonably high.
Okay, so this is a high stakes decision. So we said, you know what? Chegg's going to spend 9 or 12 months figuring out if this is a good or bad idea. It was radically different from those acquisitions, which at the end of the day, we thought they were low stakes. The magnitude of money wasn't that huge. And if we screwed up, they would just die and it didn't really matter. Okay. I mean, sorry if you were the company that got bought. I'm sure it didn't feel that way. But from the entity at Chegg, those were all low stakes. This is high stakes. Okay. My friend Lisa, you got any questions for me?
It's quiet in chat.
Yeah, it is quiet in chat. There are no questions in chat right now.
Okay. So Lisa, man, you're asking the same question I got.
Yeah, I'm trying to get people to give me some of their answers.
Yeah. Well, Lisa, can you feel the high stakes of this one?
I can, yeah. Yeah.
Does this feel like a risky thing or not to you?
It feels pretty risky, given that
feels
it
like
would
you're
be hard
betting the
to.
company, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what high risk decisions feel like. So you need to give this one time, homework, etc. Okay, Leanne or Amina, you got any insights for us on this one?
I mean, I would think that it's definitely high stakes and risky, but if you want to go into the future with the digital services, then you can focus more on that if you let Ingram deal with the rental business.
Amina, are you embracing this risk?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Leanne, where are you?
Yeah, I would like to embrace the risk as well, but only if there's some way of like doing a small experiment. Is there some way of doing a small experiment first?
So this is the scary one. There is no way to do a small experiment here. This is a high risk bet the company kind of decision. Okay, there is no way to put a foot in the water on this one. Okay, Caroline. Okay, Caroline's got a different perspective. This is way too risky. Why would you do it? Okay, and this is a question of how much risk tolerance that people have. We chose to do it. Okay, Chegg chose to do this, and here are the learnings. First, this was it took about a year of evaluation to decide to do it. High stakes, a year of evaluation, and the decision was to do it. And I think it was Mina who pointed out this was about committing to that long-term strategy. And then startups get on the playing field because they fundamentally took on some risk. And if you're trying to become a great company in the long term, you will occasionally have to embrace these kinds of risks. Obviously, Netflix did it again and again, and Chegg has done it again and again. And this is part of, you can't play it safe if you're trying to be one of these great companies that last 20, 30, or 40 years. All right, so the outcome here was good. Chegg grew as that student hub. Here it is today. If you look at it carefully, you'll notice it's a wonderfully personalized experience as well. And that overall strategy of all of these ideas worked out in the long term, with exception of a failure of social. And of course, I shared some other failures as well. And there's really just one more thing that's required. And that one thing is patience. So it takes a long time to build a successful startup. It's a lot of work. You can see the market cap here, which is essentially zero for many, many years. And then you can see it, the market cap was maybe at 5 billion in March. And with COVID, it went up and to the right. So this is just a job of patience. It takes a lot of time to learn all of this stuff. So my intent here as we bring it home is to get you thinking about how can you help your organization make great decisions. So the first thing, we were trying to model it for you today. Ask questions, form an opinion, and then engage in debate. I'd have, when I was first doing product at Electronic Arts, the boss would come to me and say, "What do you think, Gib?" And I would like blubber. And then one of my pals who was more experienced said, "Hey, Gib, he just wants to know what you think. And if you don't know, ask him questions until you can form an opinion, and then you can engage in debate." It was really great learning for me. So I work with lots of startups, getting it right, half the time, up to getting it right, maybe 70% of the time is really important. And I don't try to drive to 100%, because if you get it right 100% of the time, you're not taking on enough risk. And so here are some of the principles. Have a strategy, have those tactics and metrics that will inform your decisions. And then practice consumer science. A lot of the decisions are testable. To Leanne's point, most of them we could break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces. And then frame the stakes and process and ask yourself, this is a high risk or low risk? If it's low risk, make a decision and go. If it's high risk, then give yourself more time. And then you only need about 70% of the data. Most people procrastinate. You're not going to get all the data, all the information. You can't always ask for more tests. At some point, you have to decide and go. And then embrace risk. Okay, this is what it takes to become a great company in the long term. And if you embrace risk, you're going to get it wrong, and that's okay. And that will help you to stay humble. So I did write an article. Raquel is going to be dropping some links in. I wrote a 10 habits for making these wicked hard decisions. And I'm sharing the list with you right now. But I'm really just trying to get you intrigued about thinking about this more so that you might read the article, 10 Habits for Making Wicked Hard Decisions. And I also saw in chat that folks were sharing how to define your product strategy essay in the chat, which is also super helpful. I use a couple of tools and models from that. So these are the 10 habits that I want you thinking about and embracing. And just remember that the product leader job, the toughest part about it is making these tough decisions about people, the product, and the business. And it's really this intersection of consumer science, that looking at experimental results, having a strategy, having a plan, and then understanding how critical it is to have individuals who have good judgment. And good judgment takes a long time to learn. And this is part of the culture, the skills and behaviors that are required of a company. And this is why it takes so much time to get these three forces aligned. With that, I'll say thank you. It's been great. If you know me, I'm not quite done. There's one more thing. Raquel, if you could drop the link, that would be awesome. I often feel like I'm a street performer doing my best to breathe higher. And this is that incredibly awkward moment where I'm passing the hat, but I'm not asking money. I would just love, love, love your feedback. So if you pull out your phone right now, as though you're going to use the camera app, and Raquel's dropping a link into chat as well. A link will pop up for SurveyMonkey. The survey 0 sucks and 10 is great. Choose whatever number you want. 0 sucks, 10 is great. Pick one number, and then it's going to ask you two other simple questions. What's one thing that would make this talk better? And the other question is, what's one thing that you liked? And I just got over 600 survey results. This is my consumer science. This is how I've learned to do these talks, exec events, and workshops. Hey, Connected team, you guys are awesome. Thanks, Shannon, Lisa, Amina, Leanne, Raquel. I know you're hiding in the background. And Damien, thank you for producing us as well. You're flawless. So thanks so much. This is the same QR code as before. Raquel shared a link. It's got the PDF for the presentation, the feedback link, and that article, 10 Habits for Making Wicked Hard Decisions, which is awesome. With that, I'll truly say thank you. This is truly the last slide. I have a couple minutes for questions. If you have questions, you can ask them. Oh, that was awesome, Damien. Thanks so much.
Just some applause from my surrounding.
That's fantastic. And I'll start. I'm happy to answer questions via Slido, etc. Oh, I don't have to stop sharing because Damien takes over. My dear friend Amina, are there any juicy questions you want me to take a shot at?
Yeah, I think there's a great kind of wrap-up question asking you, what was the difference for you coming from a scale-up like Netflix to a startup like Chegg when it came to implementing the product strategy?
So know me, I've really done the same thing again and again in my career. I look up for startups with a proof of concept, and then I help them to scale. So for me, I joined Netflix in 2005. There were about 1 million members. That was pretty early, and I helped them scale to about 20 million members. Chegg felt just about the same. So what were some key differences? Entertainment, there's more money there. Ed tech's a tough area if you're trying to make money, attract investment. We worked it out. The fact that we had to start building our first consumer science or A/B test system at the beginning of 2010 points out that Chegg wasn't as engineering and data driven as Netflix was. There was already a very robust A/B test system when I joined Netflix in 2005. That was probably the hugest difference for me. The other thing was Netflix, everybody had been there, done that. They had done successful startups before. Chegg was younger and culturally huge differences. Netflix, a lot of people know about the culture. It's a pro team. And at Chegg, we were very mission driven. We actually set it up more as a family. So it was not as ruthless and hard driving and hard charging. So just a bunch of differences. And that's what makes my job fun. Every company, every challenge is different. That's a great question. Thank you.
Great. We also have another question here on the screen. How often do you end up changing your mind from your initial gut feeling?
29% of the time.
You've applied consumer science to your decision making.
I mean, give or take a point. This one trick of, I call it making a provisional decision. Express your idea, your intuition, but then and just put it out there. But then ask yourself, what additional data or what other questions do I need to get to a firmer idea? And that's a great tactic that I use with lots of teams all over the world. It's great fun too. But that's a great question.
Cool. We also have another interesting question. This person asks, "What you said, bridges to the past are a bad idea when you're innovating for the future. But can't this help you meet customers where they are? Why is this bad?"
Yeah, a good question. I'll use a Netflix example. I'm assuming everybody knows Netflix. Okay. So Netflix got big on DVD by mail, and then it led streaming, and then it went international. At some point, the DVD by mail business, it sucked up a lot of resources. So at Netflix, they had to consciously de-invest, okay? Because you're innovating in the future, you're trying to get all your focus against, at Netflix, the streaming and then eventually the original content. So a lot of it is just resources. There was a good example, Bridge to Past. We had opportunity to create businesses at Netflix like Blockbuster. In fact, we had the opportunity to buy Redbox, which was a DVD by mail company that sat in supermarkets. And our evaluation was that was a bridge to the past. It would suck up our time, our energy, and resources for DVDs by mail, which we knew were part of our past. So it's all about getting alignment about the next important thing for the next 5 to 10 years. It's distraction is the short problem with these bridges to the past.
Yeah, kind of like how you decided to partner with Ingram, focus on the future.
Correct. Let them do the past so that Chegg could focus on building a digital future, which has worked out nicely. And they were well prepared for COVID, for instance, with their Chegg study program, which was exciting to watch.
For sure.
Damien, you want to bring us home?
Absolutely. I certainly want to thank you, Gib, and then thank everybody else who joined the live stream this afternoon. I hope you found it informative and obviously gave you a little bit of context on Chegg, but most importantly, provided you with some new frameworks and tools to help you all with your product strategies. And thanks very much. We hope to do more of this kind of stuff in the future. So thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much to all of our panelists as well. Shannon from our engineering team, Lisa from our product team, Leanne from our design team, and Amina from our product strategy team as well. So thanks very much, and thank you, Gib. Take care, everyone.